and welcome to the Sunday Inside Texas live show. We're here to talk some portal with boss man Eric Nalin. But first, guys, go on ahead and hop on over to Inside Texas right now. Take advantage of the transfer portal Ultimate Fan Bundle, 50% off. Come join the IT communities. Obviously, tons of updates going around right now as portalers are hitting campus, hitting other campuses. And of course, we have the team news, more coaching news, all the fun stuff. So come on over to Inside Texas and be part of our community right now, guys. Eric, how we doing today, brother?
I'm ready for Portal Combat to be over, man, and it's only begun. It hasn't even really begun. It's just barely beginning.
Portal Combat's pretty perfect for what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, it's gonna be a wild few weeks. It's gonna go beyond January 16th. That's the last day that people can actually enter the portal, but they'll still be taking visits after that. We are just barely beginning. We'll see how much I can part with here. I'm trying not to be this. I didn't even want to do this show, to be honest with everybody, because I feel like I can't talk as openly as I'd like. Try to talk a little bit more behind the paywall. Even that's kind of difficult. Sunlight on these deals is it hinders execution. It's harder to pull off the more that's publicly known. So I'm gonna dance around some what I can, and I'll try to be open when where it's more obvious. Like Cam Coleman, we can talk pretty openly about that one because he's so well known, and it's common knowledge that he's going to visit all these schools.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you know exactly what's kind of being thrown around in regards to Cam Coleman's name as far as the dollar amounts. And yeah, you can probably be a little more open about that than everybody wants Cam Coleman. Now, there's other things, like Eric said, where Texas is trying to pull off where, being discreet maybe pays off a little bit more. So, again, I feel like most fans, they want everything and they want it right now, and they wanted to have every single portal commit by Sunday morning when they're hitting the church pews, and they wanted to feel good about the Horns. And unfortunately, the modern era of college football, that's not the reality of what we're dealing with here. And so I do implore you guys in the comments, no more all in. Just have some patience. Let's see what you're cooking with. Let's see what happens. Okay, just have some faith. But yeah, there are some more fun names in the portal. You've seen all types of options. And so that should just, in my opinion, give you more trust. Like Texas is going to find quality ads whenever they do indeed find some ads. What do you think, Eric?
Somebody on the board mentioned that update that we had today read like a June recruiting update. And, if anybody follows recruiting closely, which anybody watching this probably does, then, in June, it's kind of like a hesitation area where you're still figuring out everything, how it's going to play out. Texas always has like a rougher June and an early July, and then they go balls to the wall when they have to, when it's crunch time. They're not quite at crunch time yet. Obviously, Cam Coleman, let's talk about him because that's what, it's everybody's kind of using him as like an avatar for the whole portal. Like that's all. Mm-hmm. Either they get Cam, it's a win. If they don't, it's a total failure. I think Texas is all in. All in doesn't mean that you just spend wastefully. They just got Trevor Gooseby back the other day. The way that I think that negotiation went down, it went a little bit better in Texas's favor. So that's a little bit more money they could spend elsewhere, maybe on a guy like Cam. Feeling going into that visit weekend from a source was 65-70% Texas. He said after that visit, probably have it about 60. He's still going to take his visits, Tech. He's at A&M today, Tech, Alabama. We were talking, why is he visiting Alabama? He played at Auburn. Is he trying to get Auburn to reengage? You just have to think about this. USC is another one. A lot of this is going to be related to leverage. Nobody is is Sark cheap? Sark is not cheap. How do you have the roster that Texas does if Sark is cheap? How many 5-stars are on the roster right now? I mean, it's a lot. Justice Terry, Jonah Williams, Cade Phillips, Arch Manning. I mean, they're all over the place. So no, you can't be cheap and have one of the most expensive rosters in all of college football. So that's not really it. So is there going to be some sort of deal that Texas gets because they do have the best quarterback situation of all the schools that he's looking at? I don't know that entirely. I don't think that Texas will set the market for him. Financially anyways, that would probably be Tech, just the way they operate. But Texas feels good after the visit. Now you got to wait and see. They're going to go collect more information. He has an absolute pro at his agent is a pro. He's not some fly-by-night kid fresh out of college or an uncle. So David Mulligetta is going to use all of his leverage, and Tech gives him leverage. USC gives him leverage. A&M gives him leverage. And Texas itself gives him leverage over the other schools. So this is just the business side of it. And now we're going to see how it plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And of course, many people were like, can we please have Cam Coleman locked up by the time that he even thinks about hopping in his ride and heading to Brazos County and College Station? Well, of course, that's the best case scenario. But again, that's not really the climate that we're dealing with anymore. And especially for a player of his accord as an agent that is as pro as Mr. David is. And so, yeah, I think in the comments said it pretty well, as well as Eric did right there. He's always going to take his visits. It seems to be the mindset of that group in his camp. And so, yeah, I mean, do appreciate you guys checking in. I got Hook 'em from Alaska, Hook 'em from New Braunfels, Texas. Bud, holler at me sometime, man. We'll go play around or grab a cold beer in old New Braunfels. But
Oh man, see, I want to head to New Braunfels too. Secretly I want to live there, but not quite yet. So here, Rude Wayne, are you ever offline, my man? Why would you clean up the wide receiver running back room to not get anyone? I mean, that's exactly right. You free up some cap space. You free up cap space to go spend it. So that's where it's at. I know this is never it never moves fast enough for fans, and then it happens, and then they're all to the next thing. There's a next fever pitch around something else. Nonstop fever pitches. I would just let it play out. They're going to be good. They've got a really good process in place. I think a really good approach. Normally, results follow good processes. They've got a really good. I think the names that are known are all high level guys. Yeah, Mulligeta's a pro. Now, here's the problem. He's not a problem, not for him. He represents his client's best interest. He's a Texas graduate, but that doesn't really mean anything. So, yeah, he's definitely by the book. He's a pro, and Texas. I think Texas would rather deal with guys like Mulligeta than some of these others that are just have no clue what the market is really going to bear.
Well, no, absolutely true. I mean, and let's not pretend like all of these agents that are representing all of these kids throughout college football are actually agents. You know what I mean? I mean, we know how the game is out there a little bit, and I feel should be grateful that Cam has a guy like David who's going to probably steer him into probably a pretty payday, but also putting him in a good spot. And so, I wouldn't panic, as Eric is saying. Just have a little bit of patience. Things will play out. Texas has done pretty damn well in the portal in the past.
You should draw that thought out a little bit more. Mulligeta is representing I assume he's going to represent him in the NFL too, right? Isn't that's where the real money is?
Of course.
So Mulligeta's already thinking about draft slot. Well, draft slot, you want really good quarterback service, right? And he's going to have that with Arch Manning. You want a stable run game in place. Now, Texas doesn't have the running backs, but I guarantee you that David Mulligeta knows more about Texas's intentions in the portal than anybody on here, myself included. So they're going to have assurances that they feel good about the run game that's going to support the passing game. Coleman obviously sets up well for the offense, the play action deep shot game. And Arch commanding a lot of attention in the red zone is going to free up Cam to put up a lot bigger touchdown numbers than he had this season. So, obviously touchdown production is going to be one of the things that they look for in the draft. So, from that standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, Mulligeta can also say, look, man, you're going to the NFL no matter what. So,
right.
He could be coming out of Blinn right now and he would be drafted. But there are ways that, draft slot does matter. Going 5 overall is a lot better than going 15.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And well said. Well, one last small question and thought on Cam Coleman, and then we'll move on a little bit. But is there a scenario at all with that camp and maybe them wanting to see what type of portal moves Texas, as you mentioned, David Mulligeta having an idea of what Texas's intentions are. Is there any chance his camp is just waiting to see exactly how that plays out before they make their ultimate decision? Or is it hey, looking for the best fit?
I think they're just doing all their due diligence. And by the time that they've gotten closer to finalizing a decision, they'll have a lot more global view of not just Texas. A&M has huge portal needs too. They need O-linemen bad. Other schools have portal needs. So I think they want to see it. Texas Tech, who's their quarterback going to be? Is it going to be Storsby? He's flirting with LSU quite a bit. I think he's going to run his own process, but by the time he's ready to make a decision, he doesn't have to be in any hurry. That's the thing. Fans are going to, we're going to get tired talking about Cam Coleman probably. He doesn't have to be in a hurry. And Mulligeta being a pro is going to slow him down. Tell him take a deep breath. Let's gather all the information. When it's time to sit down and make an ultimate decision, now you're going to have a much more clearer view of what teams added and who really needs them. So, this one's going to probably play out for a little bit.
No, well said, sir. Let's move on just a little bit, Trey. I do appreciate Mr. Lopez, the super chat here. Any word on Isaac Brown? Louisville believes he's returning. Now, this is kind of one of those weird spots, because I know, Eric, you're not supposed to really get into too many things about guys that are not in the portal. But it sounds like he was close to being in the portal, not officially in the portal.
Yeah, he's. I mean, we've been talking about it for weeks. That in agent circles, they thought for sure he was going in. He's trying to go in, and Louisville's doing their thing. Louisville's good at it. But one thing that has my interest, they already have a good running back, another Brown, Kewan Brown, and they're bringing in Cam Edwards from UConn to take a look at him. So I don't think they would be taking Cam Edwards to pair with Kewan Brown if they thought Isaac was coming back. Texas, the expectations from my sources are that they think that he's going to go in the portal, and if he does go in the portal, there'll be players for him. But until he goes in, we won't really know. Yeah, I'm just as interested to see how that one plays out. Coleman, if Coleman goes in, I do think Texas would be in a pretty decent spot. They obviously need a running back, a top tier running back, and he would shoot to the top of the board.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I mean, he's a guy that. Obviously, there's some things going on right there. Louisville really wants to keep him around. Been very productive for him. Louisville's they're not shy. They're going to throw their money around just like everybody else. I will say this, man, Rude Wayne, because it seems like you're a little bit negative today, and it's okay, buddy. We all have bad Sundays. A&M, like Eric said, man, they got a ton of portal needs. Not just on that offensive line. They do need help at wide receiver. Shoot, they might want to add a guy to push Marcel Reed a little bit. But on the defensive side of the ball, considering that Mike Elko's a defensive-minded coach, that linebacker room is far from the standard that he wants it to be. So it'd be curious to see how how they spend money on that offense, what A&M does on the entire roster. But go ahead, sir.
They've got expensive. Yeah, they're in for an expensive couple weeks because they need an edge too. That's anytime you get an edge, that's not going to be cheap at all. So, people talk about this. I think people have a much greater appreciation when they see schools spend real high on these individual players rather than the total roster. Texas just kicked the crap out of A&M because their total roster is better. So I wouldn't get hung up on what A&M does versus Texas. Texas has the better approach overall. I know A&M went 12-1 or whatever. That's pretty clear why that happened. Their schedule was weak. Well, look what happened when they met real teams. So getting infatuated. Look what happened with Tech. Getting infatuated with these schools that spend a lot on these individual players. I think I like Texas's approach, even though now we're starting to see it swing a little bit towards more needing more individual players. Like you said, Coleman got the first visit. That's pretty instructive, right? That tells us something. And we've been hearing privately. I've heard Coleman's name for a couple of weeks as somebody that might enter, and so that's good to know that Texas knew it and Texas was ready to pounce when he went in.
How big of an effect does Arch Manning play with some of these guys and them and I hate to be that guy, but a lot of people are going to want to play. It's the same thing we talked about the other night on Inside Texas Live, where we're the Derek Williams and you have all this reign of recruitments that have just ended up just a week, 2-3 weeks after Arch committed to Texas. You saw all these guys hopping in the boat with him. Does that still kind of play into effect with some of these portal guys?
I don't think so. It helps for practical reasons, like needing a quarterback as a wide receiver, or needing a quarterback that like Arch as a running back. It plays for practical reasons. I don't think it's going to help with guys that just want to play with Arch because he's a great guy. Sure, his teammates love him. There's no doubt about that. He is a great guy. But with the more professionalized it gets, the more people are just like, they're kind of looking at dollar amounts and the practical situation. How pragmatic is it for me to go to that school to reach their larger goal of not just getting drafted, but finding success in the NFL. So, the development is very important, and it's, it can't be good enough for a lot of these guys just to get to the league. You want to get that second contract. You want to be ready to hit the ground running when you get there. I think Texas has done really good developing. They made some bad decisions this past year that kind of hurt them from the team maximizing their potential, but they're right back on track next year. Just look at the guys that are going to get drafted. So I think it helps for practical reasons, but not just because Arch is some great guy and everybody wants to play with him. Even the brand recognition you're going to have increase with Arch. There's value in that because then you can maximize your real NIL value. So there's another practical reason to why it matters, but it's not just because he's a Manning and his uncle's host Saturday Night Live and all that. There's just a lot of real genuine reasons to want to play with Arch.
Yeah, well said. Guys, we're going to talk for just a couple more minutes with Eric about some portal updates. But first, let's hear a word from our Sunday sponsor, the Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Fast one.
Same day delivery powered by DoorDash.
Told you, very quick word. But yeah, so let's move on a little bit. We talked, Isaac Brown talked a little bit about the effect of Arch Manning. Obviously, we had about 10 minutes on Cam Coleman. let's look at a couple of offensive linemen. Now, Texas is definitely needing some interior depth for this offensive line, and I mean front end starters for this offensive line on the interior. But it seems we got a couple of tackles on campus. What do you know, or what have you heard about the O linemen from Michigan that have visited the 40 acres?
Yeah, it's really good visits. If there's one thing I'm probably most confident on, I think it's that the overall run game is going to be improved next year. I think they've got some really good targets lined up. I would probably why do people keep saying we could be twins, man? I don't see it. I mean, I don't know.
I think you're better looking, so I get a little happy every time I see that comment. Yeah. I'm not going to lie to you.
Oh, geez, man. Yeah. So there's another player we're watching too that's going to help improve the run game. I feel really good about what they have lined up. Like I said, I'm probably going to watch the Citrus Bowl again with a little bit more intent to see how everything went. I really like where they're at with the offensive line. Now I don't know the entire plan. I think there's going to be another player that I'm not quite sure of that'll probably end up in the class. I know they're still evaluating some guys. The good guard out of Stanford. He's a little bit young and maybe still a little bit light, but he's from South Oak Cliff. He's a good player. We know that they're just evaluating a lot of other guys. There's the Akins kid, Akins from Arizona State has interest. So we'll see what they come up with, but I think we're going to see some legitimate Big Ten muscle added up front, which I think has sorely been missed.
Yeah, I like that Stanford guard, man. He has some nastiness to him. Again, a little bit light. Probably needs to have a big, off season in the weight room and in conditioning. But definitely some fun things to build with on that. Are there any other names that come to the top of your head at any other positions where I know you just said, hey, Texas is probably going to have another guy that ends up in this class that none of us really saw coming, or maybe it wasn't expected. But any other names out there of guys in the portal that maybe you personally want to see Texas get involved with?
Well, Zion Williams just went in, big defensive tackle. That's a need because, we're also tracking Ian Gaffard from Arkansas. He left, he visited, he's at SMU today. I think he already visited. They need a big nose tackle. These guys that can really make Muschamp's defense go. You need a massive nose tackle in the middle because a lot of times they're going to run more three-man fronts than we've seen at Texas in the past. That nose tackle, oftentimes it's heads up over the center. He's two gapping. So you've just got to have a lot more mass in the middle. And that's what Gaffard would bring. And also Zion Williams from LSU, if you guys remember that. Talented kid from East Texas. Went and saw him a couple times. Really, it was such a weird recruitment. I think he was almost steered towards LSU when he never seemed like an LSU kid to me. I think this kid was like in theater and playing Santa Claus and stuff. So I didn't understand how the LSU thing came about, but obviously that ran its course. So that, the value there is the replacement of the 2026 losses at D tackle, the guys that didn't sign. They had 3 guys that decommitted. So that's a replacement there, but also, outside of Josiah Sharma, I'm not sure anybody else on the roster fits. So you got to get a starter, right, but you also need some depth. So we're looking at that. The kid out of UTSA, that's another fit for Muschamp. Kenny, I don't want to mispronounce his last name. Kenny, you'll have to go on there. UTSA from San Antonio, Reagan. He plays that 4-eye. So again, we're talking about a 3-man defensive lineman front. Where he's got to have to play bigger. You can play with the bigger defensive end or a smaller D tackle there, but I don't think they have enough of that specific body type that they're looking for. So that would be another one worth watching. You can bring that question back up here. I mean, I'm not saying it's good that Cam Coleman isn't there. I mean, it's just realistically, if you were running that recruitment, I would love for you to want to just sign on the dotted line right away. It's just not how it's going to work. So I didn't say it's good. Nobody said it's good, but how many of the top 50 guys in the portal right now are even signed anywhere? Right. There's a lot of guys taking visits, and a lot of that is to create leverage. If you don't have leverage in a negotiation, you're about to get worked over. So there's easy ways to create leverage in the portal. You just go to this. What school's biggest rivals are in need of a wide receiver? Well, if it's Texas, you're obviously gonna have interest in A&M, who's already committed there once too. And I don't know about having Holman Wiggins first time offensive coordinator. I don't know how much that helps their case. Excuse me, but it's all about creating leverage. So I'm not surprised. I'm not saying it's a good thing you left uncommitted. It'd be great this would be a whole different video if you would have committed.
Oh, a whole different video. Maybe a lot of fireworks going off. But Jason, we do appreciate the super chat, my man. Thanks a lot for watching. Yeah, I mean, you talked about the big nose tackle and the must jam defense. Like that's something where I'm going to start to raise my expectations for this defense strictly off, not strictly, but largely off of what we find in that position and what that looks like. And so obviously they're very active in being aggressive in finding that need. I was trying all morning to say the kid from UTSA's name. I was really hoping you're going to be able to bail me out. I don't know if it's Ozawalu or Ozawelu, but I was working on it, man. I was trying.
I think it's Ozawalu, but
okay.
yeah, I'm not sure. So Caden Durham, we get asked about him a lot. Yeah, we wouldn't be surprised about Caden. Obviously, they're looking for 2 running backs, so they've got some young guys that they want to play a lot next year, but I think they want a little bit more of a floor. Latest on Jaden Baugh is holding pattern with him. Florida remains confident in him, but for some reason he hasn't gone in, or for some reason he hasn't declared his intentions to them that he's 100% back. What's the reason there? There's always the potential for these. I mean, I can explain that for a few different ways. I mean, he could just be stalling to buy time to go in at the right time. I mean, it's, there's a lot of different reasons on the business side of it for these people to do these things. I just never, we just don't always know what their exact reasoning is. From Florida's perspective, why hasn't he agreed to what's on the table in front of him? And then you've got the added trust with the Texas because he's got trust in Jabbar Jaluk. So, I'm not sure. I still haven't ruled him out. Probably most likely he'll stick with Florida, but Texas is still watching that one closely. Still watching Isaac Brown to see if he goes in. Durham, there's obviously a back channel there with Colin. Him and Colin Simmons are close. We would not rule him out in the class or on the roster. Caleb Hawkins would not entirely rule him out. And there's still another running back that might enter the portal. So things are going to shake out, but we just need a couple more guys to go in the portal. Linebackers, same position, man. That stud out of Cal went in yesterday. We kind of said, hey, look, there's one line. Actually, there's 3 linebackers we're watching. Now there was 4. Now there's 3, and he was one of them. So there's all these guys that everybody's still waiting to see if they go in. We're just barely getting started. But I like that the guys that we're seeing are talented. I sent Texas Homer one of the tight ends because he's always crying about tight ends, and he loves the guy. I sent the linebacker to Ian. He's like, man, this guy's awesome. So it's just need more time to see what shakes out and get more guys on campus.
Exactly like you just said too. You're going to have some names that maybe they're not quite as sexy as a Cam Coleman or some of the other big names at certain positions. Just nail the evaluations, man. You can find some great value from some of these schools where some of our fans may say, hey, who the heck is this guy? Oh, we struck out and we're having to go to this, when maybe that's a guy Texas really wanted all along. So I would implore trust the staff. Hey, we're working on recruiting Eric to New Braunfels. We got everybody in the chat doing it. Y'all keep it up. We're gonna get them over here by next Christmas. And so, but yeah, I do appreciate all you guys tuning in. Make sure y'all throw a like on this video. Go share it with a friend. Lots of people need portal updates. And another super chat. Appreciate that a lot. But yeah, I agree, man. When they walk away from campus, I know it kind of feels like, hey, did we just lose our chance on that guy? But again, in this era of college football, a lot of these guys are absolutely going to be, they're going to be taking all these visits, and these agents behind them are. Maybe if it was just Cam Coleman showing up alone and it's just him, you got a different story, man. But it's just not how it works right now, unfortunately. And hey, I get it. I deserve that comment, I guess. We'll see. That they definitely have maybe a little bit of ground to make up as far as earning some of our trust back and whatnot. But any thoughts on that, Eric?
I mean. I hear you. I've told everybody I need to be a little bit more skeptical about some things. But when I see the offensive lineman they've got bringing in, it's like, okay, that's a 180-degree reversal of course. It's what they should have done last year. Whatever, that's spilled milk. I think it should be debated that they're going to have a much better offseason this year because they had a bad offseason last year. So. The resolve to address the roster deficiencies is certainly there. I'm not worried about that. The process, I think, is in place. And like I said earlier, when the process is good, the results are going to be good more often than not.
Yeah, well said there. And that's the thing. You got to think there's certainly some added motivation to get this ship rightened after what's a little bit of a weird year, to say the least. But overall, I mean, I think that, Texas is all in, the mantra, I don't think that's off. You got to be smart about what you're doing. And again, with all these agents around, kids are going to take their visits. Kids are going to take a little more time making their decisions. And as Eric said, we just kind of at the tip of the iceberg, and eventually there are going to be some big loud cracks in that, and hopefully some of those fall Texas ways. But Eric, anything else before we let everyone get out of here and let you go enjoy your Sunday?
No, I just feel good. I wish there was a little bit more for the fans to see that's tangible. But I feel good about where Texas is at, and they just need to keep getting guys on campus, keep working the phones with agents. There's a lot of dialogue going on of guys that are not on campus, that's just they're working the phones nonstop. Like I said, they've got a good plan. It's going to work out. Now we have to wait and see to what degree. But also, they should be smart and be dialing up some contingencies just in case they need them.
Oh, absolutely. And we do have a couple more super chats coming in. I really appreciate that, guys. Keon Keeley, any comments you can make on Texas and any interest there?
I haven't heard any interest with him. No. His name hasn't come up. That doesn't mean that there's not anything there. I'm pretty confident there were guys on campus yesterday that people don't know about, that I don't know about. Mm-hmm. There's always more going on than people realize. It's we do our best to uncover what we can. But there were some guys on campus we don't know about.
Absolutely. And again, like you said in the very beginning of the show, I'm sure Texas prefers it that way at times. It helps keep everything in front of you without everyone knowing what you're up to, knowing what you're maybe willing to spend and what you're willing to pay. And so, that again, just part of the new era of the sport. And we are certainly in wild times. Any guesses on when we think the first domino falls, Eric?
One of our board insiders said somebody signed yesterday. I wasn't able to confirm that. I heard that nobody had signed yet. I'm not sure. Maybe one of those O linemen would be first. But we'll see. I'm sure that just like we talked about with Coleman, that guy's got an agent. When you go in with let's say you go in with a no contact tag, you can actually hurt your leverage a little bit there. You want to be able to create leverage. So we'll see how things play out. I feel really good about the O-lineman, but I just don't know exactly when they want to make a decision.
Yeah, well said. I think Texas is going to turn over all of the rocks out there, and they will find some really good value. It's going to be okay. Again, we're probably not getting everyone, but I do think it's going to be okay. Justin, appreciate you watching, brother. You always support my man. So it's going to be all right. I think again the proper motivation that the staff has to fix some of these things will encourage them to do so. And again, there's some really good value out there. So if it's not a big, splashy name, go watch the tape. Go make your own opinion before you're writing off this guy because of where he attended school the previous couple of years. Trinidad Chambliss was playing D2 ball last year.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Joey Aguilar was nowhere. Do you always get this many super chats when you're on? Because I'm just going to have you sit on here and filibuster for the next 24 hours if so.
It's the twin combo, brother. We got the brothers on here going. See, I told you we got the twins going. The people want what they want. That's probably the best comment I've seen all week regarding everything. Man, what a comment. But yeah, guys, really appreciate the energy in the chat. Y'all are the best. Plenty of updates coming via the portal or via Inside Texas about the transfer portal, but turn those notifications on, man. X, Facebook, Instagram, obviously stay on the boards because there's a lot of moving parts. There's going to be, you got the mod thread going on Inside Texas right now. I think I refresh that every 35 seconds. Killing the phone battery here during this portal era, but all right, guys, anything else, Eric?
No, that's it. Hopefully, I would love to be back on YouTube in 2 hours or whatever, talking about a commit, but we'll see. It's going to happen at some point. Just, patience is a virtue.
Patience is a virtue, definitely in recruiting. I think Sark and his staff have talked about the June issues and people panicking, and the next thing you know is July 7th or 8th, and Texas has pulled in their second 5-star in as many days and added tons of other talent. Gage, love you, brother. Appreciate that a lot, my man. And again, throw a like on this video, go share it with a friend. But yeah, also don't forget about that Transfer Portal Ultimate Fan Bundle running at 50% off right now. You can go take advantage of that and join our Inside Texas community. There it is right there. Go do that. Come share your thoughts with us regarding the portal, regarding team news and everything else. See all the good articles from Eric, Justin, Joe, wrong button. Eric, Joe, everybody, Evan, Nash, the whole squad. So come join us, guys. But until next time, we'll see y'all later.